Jim Harbaugh. Well, this is kind of interesting. The NCAA penalties for what happened not with the Connor Stalions investigation, but COVID, the dead period, recruiting violations, very similar you think about with Arizona State and Herm Edwards, including hammering Jim Harbaugh for violating recruiting and inducement rules, engaging in unethical conduct. Now, giving a guy a hamburger or a couple of dollars for a piece of some gas or whatever, that doesn't, but so here's the worst part about this. It's not even the fact that they are coming down on him. He's got a 4-year show cause penalty.
Well, I mean, it means nothing because he's going to be in the NFL for at least 3 of those.
Well, he just won't go back. So here's his attorney, Tom Mars. You talk about basically with the middle finger. The way I see it from Coach Harbaugh's perspective, today's decision on the infractions is like being in college and getting a letter from your high school saying you've been suspended because you didn't sign the yearbook. If I were Coach Harbaugh's in his shoes and had 80 or 60 million, or what is it, 80 million contract as the head coach of the Chargers, I wouldn't pay attention to any of the findings of a kangaroo court which claims to represent the principles of the nation's most flagrant repeat violator of the federal antitrust laws.
Yeah, Thomas Mars is the guy if you're going to sue. You know, the NCAA tried to hire him. I don't know if you remember that. The NCAA tried to hire him a few years ago in the kind of if you can't beat him, join him. And he's like, I'm making so much money off of you. Like, why would I take a pay cut to help you? I'm almost single-handedly breaking your back.
Yeah, they should have hired Jeffrey Kessler and Mars and would have saved themselves $2 billion or so.
Billions and billions of dollars. So, no, and it is. It's ridiculous. Them punishing him. You can punish the school, but again, he's already gone. So this is another NCAA punishment that means nothing. And a 4-year show cause, if he's moderately good, given the Chargers have to pay him all that money, just moderately good for the first 2 years, he'll get the next 2.
Right.
You know, and so
yeah.
I mean, he could still go back in 4 years if he wants to, which even if he makes it 3 years, all you have to do is sit out a year and then go back. So I don't know. I think and this has nothing to do with Connor Stalions. I mean, this stuff doesn't really bother me. I mean, the recruiting during COVID and all those things it's shady there's a lot of people who've agreed to not do this and you're like, I don't care. I'm going to do it. That to me it just kind of shows you what was going on there. But there's a lot of stuff. They had the fire a coach for computer access crimes. Mm-hmm. They, have this Connor Stalions thing. So to think that, all of the different things that have gone at Michigan, Jim Harbaugh was doing things with 100% integrity like he would like you to know. No, he belongs in the NFL where, you probably don't have to do a lot of these things anyway. And 2, that there's not this, I agree with Thomas Mars. It's a kangaroo court.
He's become the football version in college of Jerry Tarkanian almost.
Yeah, but go ahead, go ahead to the NFL. That's fine. He'll be really good with the Chargers and leave Michigan behind because clearly you didn't agree with the way that college sports runs. And, it's changing anyhow. We'll see what happens with the Connor Stalions thing. I think he made a PR misstep by coming out so vehemently and Rafael Palmeroing it.
Yep, because I agree.
Because, and look, however you feel about Connor Stalions and all that, that's all for people to judge on what level of unfair this is. And, everybody else is doing it. Okay. All that. Let's get through that. The bottom line is for Jim Harbaugh is he came out and put his integrity on the line. And all it's going to take is one piece of hard evidence that Jim Harbaugh sent a text in a group chat of, good work, Connor.
Yep.
This is going to help us beat Ohio State. And then it's over because.
Well, here's the thing. Show cause could be extended forever. He could just not be able to coach again. Yeah. But at the same time, if the NCAA wants to be like pure dick mode, they can sit there and vacate the title, which we've discussed would be stupid. And also just really is a waste of time because everybody knows who won the national title and the best record ever with 15-0 by doing that. Couple of recruiting notes. UCF, late yesterday, Javon Boggs, flipped his commitment from Missouri to UCF. 6'1", 200-pound wide receiver from Cocoa, Florida, had been committed to Missouri since, I guess, a little bit earlier in July. But here's the note. It is the highest rated recruit, if they keep him and sign him, in program history. If he, in fact, does stay and remains stay, we hope he does. And now they're in the top 15 as far as recruiting classes, at least at this particular time, number one at this time in the Big 12.
Well, Cocoa is not far. I mean, he's not going to be far from home. Is that
Cocoa Beach?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I go by there a lot of times.
It's essentially in the metroplex of Orlando. It's in the greater, I wouldn't call it the greater Orlando area, but if you woke up in the morning and somebody said, hey, I've got to go buy a car in Orlando, will you drive me there? Your friend wouldn't be, oh, no, I'd be fine. Good. We'll get something to eat on the way home. Like that kind of a thing. It's not bad. It's not far. So.
All right, so also this news, and Texas had been striking out. They always are going to end up in the end with a top 3-4 class, if not better, because they have so many 5 stars that they're after, but they had lost out on a handful of people, right? They'd lost to Oregon and a couple of others. Well, they got Klinique Lockett, wide receiver from Saxe and Garland, just east of Dallas, 5-star player. LSU, Alabama involved too. He's a big, tall.
FSU was involved.
6'2", 180-pound wide receiver from Saxe. Where did Duvernay play?
Was he from Saxe, Garrett?
I can't remember, honestly.
I think he was.
So there's a 5-star, and there's a couple of more that they're looking at. There's French, and there's one other that they could still end up with one hell of a class. So even when they lose and there's like a little trepidation, they're in the end, those same 6 to 8 schools for the most part, and Texas with a big-time commit from Lockett from Saxe High School.
It's not a big surprise. It always felt to me like, he had all these schools on there, but to get him out of Texas was going to be tough. Was going to be really tough. And they've got, great recruiting in the DFW area, and, maybe he transfers somewhere else if it doesn't work out, but I think he's the next big-time Texas guy. He's a really, really good player.
Devin Duvernay, who originally signed with Baylor in the year of 2016 when all hell broke loose, when Art Briles was eventually fired in May, he had signed with Baylor, ended up at Texas. He went to Saxe High School. So that's what I thought, just popped into my head about he and his connection to Saxe. CJ Baxter. Now, I have not seen anything in the last hour.
Well, I've got something for you.
Okay. He had an injury of his knee, and this was an update from, I saw Mike Craven put up an update, but now out for the year.
Out for the year, LCL.
Man, this absolutely sucks. Now, they have Jaden Blue, and they'll have plenty, but this right here is a hell of a player out of Florida, high-ranked 5-star running back, who now, the update is out for the year.
Out for the year, according to Pete Thamel. LCL and PCL, that's a long injury to come back. I guess the good news is if you're going to get hurt and be out for the season, you might as well get hurt before it starts so that you're closer to ready to go when the next season starts or the next thing. But, yeah, it really sucks for CJ Baxter. Right now, the depth chart would be after Jaden Blue, okay, Trey Wisner would be the backup as it stands today.
Waco Connolly High School, great player, made a huge hit on a kick return coverage against Baylor last year, and an unbelievable, pure, just raw, incredible speed that we got to cover when he was at Connolly High School, then went up to play at DeSoto.
Yeah, one of the biggest turnarounds in a single game I've ever seen a player make.
Yeah.
We were doing a game and against their rival school, La Vega, and they knew that he was young. He was a young player at the time. He's only a sophomore. They knew of him well, but they knew he wasn't quite tough yet. And so they kind of went at him a little bit.
Yeah, they did. They roughed him up.
They roughed him up. And then China Spring later in the year, early on, did the same thing. And then Trey Wisner got up finally and said, the hell with you guys. I'm just going to run past you.
And it happened after he made a play on defense. It kind of turned him around. He took over that game and had a hell of a finish with that one.
But true freshmen Jarrett Gibson and Christian Clark, one of them probably will see a lot more time because you kind of have to go at least 3 deep at that position, at least.
And just remember now, and this is not because of anything they knew, but the young man from University
Nick
High.
Sanders.
Nick Sanders, 6'1" or so, 6'1", like 210, baseball player that was going to join the football team. So all of a sudden, who knows if that even is something that ends up with him being involved. CJ Baxter's an alpha, and he's out for the year with numerous reports, as you mentioned. Here's an interesting note, and I saw some K-State media, or those who cover K-State, go, what in the hell? Like, for example, our buddy Tim Fitzgerald was, like, furious with this. Like, what in the holiest of blank? Will Howard describes what makes Ohio State different than Kansas State. Now, you could stop there and fill in a lot of different blanks because they're Ohio State against most anybody else in the country. I don't feel like I have to be a hero here, and I feel like I have guys around me to where I just need to facilitate. If Will Howard would have taken care of the ball a little bit better at times last year, I liked the young man. He's a good player. He was really at times fantastic. But that's kind of a cheap shot at K-State and the talent around him when he himself could have played better.
Yeah, that is. And look, he's not wrong that, he steps into a program where, and I say this, I've said it many times, Will Howard is probably the least talented guy on that team.
At Ohio State?
That doesn't mean that he's not talented. I'm just saying that given the other 21 starters, I think he's got really good opportunity to be in the Ken Dorsey position of that. I mean, I don't think they're 0-1 Miami good, but they are built roster-wise to the point where the quarterback doesn't have to be the best player on the team. They've got another guy, and he's good. He's a really good player. So that's why he benefits them. He's mobile. He does all these things. He's a gamer. But I would have left that part out, considering that he did play with guys like Deuce Vaughn, who was, in fact, Superman for his team. He played with some really good wide receivers. He played with a bunch of good running backs. He played with an offensive line that can hang with anybody in the country. So, I know Ohio State is, got a little more bells and whistles probably than the Wildcats do because they're Ohio State. But, yeah, probably not the best way to say that.
Yeah, I just I saw a few people, what? Yeah, actually I don't have to go out there and do anything superhuman. Now, when he did, I mean, they were really, really good. But it wasn't as if they had to rely on him. And eventually they turned it over to Avery Johnson, who had that monster game against Tech. And if Will Howard would have played better down the stretch at the end of the game against Texas in overtime, they win the game, and who knows how that affects UT and Kansas State moving forward. So this is a trend. In fact, I saw where Blake Lawrence, who's a part of Open Doors, former Nebraska player, and who's the guy that is the brains behind that? It was another former Nebraska player with Open Doors. It might even be him. Yeah, it is. It's Blake Lawrence and Sam Weber and a few others. He said that this next story, that 100% of FBS programs will have a general manager in a position by this time next year. And I bring that up because of this. South Lake Carroll High School up in Dallas, their athletic director, Steve Kiesler, is joining North Texas as a new general manager of football, senior associate AD for NIL. David Kay's now the guy that runs it for Baylor at every school. Not everyone, because they didn't. But North Texas, he goes, I've spent 16 years of my career, always wanted to retire with Carroll, et cetera. But this is a position, an opportunity with the new landscape of college athletics that I can't bypass.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there is opportunity. One of the things I've kind of wondered is, why? I mean, they always kind of had positions like this in the recruiting coordinator or something like that. But why they were trying to do it any different than just not paying guys, right? Like, it's almost the same job, but you're not paying anybody. That's but yeah, they're going to have general managers, NIL, all those things. Everybody's going to have one.
Yeah, they're going to have an NIL department with not just the person who is, like in this case, or David Kay or whoever it might be for all the other schools, but you're going to have a staff.
Yeah.
So there's more money involved in that because it's such a big deal. The Biletnikoff Award, which goes to the most outstanding wide receiver at the FBS level. These are the names of those nominated, at least now, from the Big 12, with Ashton Hawkins, who's a transfer in for Baylor, on the list. You see the others, including Kelly at Tech and Hunter, and also Wester at Colorado. Oklahoma State with Owens, and I like Brennan Presley. He is a tough SOB, and I mean that in a complimentary way. Iowa State with Noel, and also on the list, there's McMillan. We mentioned him yesterday. Hudson from UCF. Higgins, Iowa State with Higgins and Noel, 2 players, and then Lawrence Arnold from Kansas is also on the list. I hope I didn't forget anybody because I don't want to do that. You show the list and then you forgot. I was surprised at this, the national list, and there's a lot of big names. You know who wasn't on there, and it surprised me? That might be the criteria until you put numbers up now, is Bond at Texas.
Yeah, I'm really so. I mean, he's
not on the list.
But he was very good for Alabama.
It's about actual, not potential, performance based on the inclusion on the Biletnikoff. Now, he was pretty good at Alabama, but
he wasn't the number 1 receiver, but he was gonna be.
That's the first one I looked for. I just like, wait a minute, it looks like there's some names missing. But again, I'm part of the Biletnikoff Award, a part of the watch list, and so maybe on me too for not bringing him up, and maybe I did. But you can add names. You could also drop off the list too based on production.
Does that mean you get to go to that dinner?
If I can.
Well, you know where their club is.
Tallahassee.
Yeah.
No, it's Biletnikoff who played at Florida State University.
Yeah. He was the first player that we had. No, I don't want to do that to Lee Corso and Burt Reynolds, but he's one of the first players we had that didn't suck.
What?
Yeah, Fred Biletnikoff made people believe that you could have good players at Florida State because he was only there like 25 years, 30 years after it was an all-girls school.
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah. Because. So who would be in order? Corso? It's got to be Corso. No, it's got to be Burt Reynolds, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, if it's too bad he's not alive because I would have said, look, I don't care about Doak Campbell anymore. We need to be Burt Reynolds Stadium.
Yeah. And I did I see earlier, like today or yesterday, that Lee Corso turned 89?
89.
Yeah, I believe it.
89 years young.
89.
Here's something Paul sent out yesterday evening from Toby Rowland. He's Oklahoma media. That's what he covers. The SEC teams. This is for the most appearances in the preseason AP poll in history. Think about this. Now, that's not the coaches poll. That's different. It used to be UPI. Now it's the USA Today or whatever that brand is. Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas, 1, 2, and 3. Tennessee, 4. This is in the SEC. But look at the numbers there. But look at Oklahoma, that's when we this could be a down year. I know the first year Venables wasn't very good. Stoops' first year, they're like 6-6 or whatever it was. But they're coming off that disaster of Snellenberger and Blake. I mean, this puts things in perspective of who is always usually in the mix, and those names are always in the mix, as some of them have been there for decades.
Vanderbilt, never. Never, ever.
Yeah.
And they've had good teams. I mean, not great teams, but they've had – you would have thought that like 1 year at Vanderbilt, before the season started, that there would have been one team they had would be like, well, this is the 25th best team in the country. Never.
Well, and
it's only happened for Kentucky 5 times.
Yeah.
That was probably mostly recent, honestly.
And there may be 1 or 2 of those 5 recently. Mississippi State, South Carolina. Remember the years George Rogers and those teams that were so good. Even Missouri, that's surprising me. There's a drop-off because, they've got a nice history of football. Now, there were times when they were just okay, but that was kind of surprising to me. Vanderbilt's football history. They have won, let's see here. Yeah, this is talking about a long, long history. They're under 500. They've been to 9 bowl games. You would have thought that there was 1 year where they were like, back in the day, let's say 25 years ago, they were 9-3 or something. Coming off a bowl game. The next year, they had a lot of guys back, but not once, according to that list of those coming back. I want one more story to get to. Now we can move this one back on former Cowboys running back, a Texan, in Dwayne Thomas, who passed away. We'll get to that because there's a lot of great stories. Man, you talk about an unhappy individual, maybe just misunderstood, but we'll get to that. Dwayne Thomas, who I think could have won a Super Bowl MVP when the Cowboys beat the Colts back in 1971.